Chad Simon here, musician and entertainment personality. Today we get to share the light on a beautiful family in a challenging situation. To create context for everyone viewing this, this is Dino and Courtney, and we have beautiful Elijah over here who is 3 years old. Now Elijah has acute flaccid myelitis, which is a frightening condition that is quite rare. Which mostly starts with a mild illness caused by a viral infection for the most part, and then rapidly spreads throughout the body. In this case, we will refer to it as AFM, correct, for those viewing. So, Dino, let's start at the beginning. I think, you know, the moment that you discovered something was up. I know it started with a cough initially.
Yeah, so July 2022 was sort of mid-20s, 25th, I think it was around that date. Elijah started showing symptoms of just having a normal cough. I flew to Joburg towards the end of July, which was the 28th. I was just there for 2 days on business. Courtney messaged me when I arrived in Joburg and said, look, Elijah's cough, it hasn't gotten better. She feels that it's gone to his chest. Courtney actually suffers from chronic asthma, so we kind of get an understanding of what to listen out and look out for. So we made the decision for Courtney to take Elijah to his normal pediatrician, who at the time was still at Vincent Pallotti. It was a normal checkup. His doctor advised that we admit him because he is on a hospital plan. Might as well admit him. Let medical aid cover those costs. At that stage, we weren't worried at all because Elijah was hospitalized three times before that. He was hospitalized. The very first time he was hospitalized was he had RSV, and there was a 4-day stint. He was in hospital. So we were sort of
used to it.
Yeah. This is for layman's terms, we were used to it. So it was nothing out of the norm. Obviously me and Joburg get the call and I say, look, admit him, it's fine. At that time, Elijah's youngest brother, or only brother, Isaiah, he was staying at home with my mom. My mom was helping out at the time. And Courtney stayed at the hospital overnight with Elijah. I flew back to Cape Town on the Friday, and I went straight to the hospital to take over from Courtney, and Courtney went home. Saturday morning, woke up, the on-call doctor came, checked Elijah out and said, look, I'm happy, let's discharge him. I still said to Elijah, you ready to go home? And he jumped for joy, yes, happy. Courtney came to pick us up from the hospital, and went home. Saturday was a normal day. Sunday, we woke up. And my mom mentioned and said Elijah's walking funny with a limp, almost a limp. I was busy making breakfast in the kitchen, and Courtney said it could potentially just be a full nappy because usually overnight he sleeps, you make a poo, you make a big wee.
Got that funny
full
nappy walk.
But then when Courtney checked the nappy, that wasn't the case. So she called me, we put him on the bed, and every time we stood him up, his leg, his right leg, it just buckled, like it gave in. So immediately got on the phone again, and being a Sunday, we called the doctor that discharged Elijah, and he said, look, if you can take a video of it and send it to me, which we did. We sent a WhatsApp video, and he said to him, it looks like it could be synovitis, which is a common occurrence when you have a bacterial infection. It's an inflammation, viral infection. It's an inflammation of the hip joints. All you need to do is just take anti-inflammatory and it should be gone. At this stage, again, there's no worry, there's no concern, there's no stress because a professional has now told us, guys, don't stress. So I don't stress. That was the Sunday. He did say, look, if there's a temperature spike or anything of the sort, then you start to worry. Sunday evening came, Elijah did get a bit of a temperature. We called the doctor, we said we're gonna take him to the ER. By the time we got maybe halfway, temperature was fine, Elijah was fine. We decided to turn it around. We went home and we called the doctor, said, look, we're not gonna take him to ER, but he did advise, listen, bring him in on Monday. let's do a check, maybe an X-ray and an ultrasound, and we'll see if it is synovitis. Monday came, I went to work like it was normal. Courtney took Elijah to the hospital. Doctor checked him out. They didn't do an ultrasound or a X-ray, but he did examine Elijah and he said, look, it's synovitis. I've seen this many times, it's synovitis. Again, don't worry, don't stress. Courtney relays the message to me, I don't worry, I don't stress. So now we're up to Tuesday. This was the 1st of August. Yes, the 1st of August.
Yeah. No?
Yes.
Yeah. 1st of August, yeah.
The 1st of August. The reason why we're back and forth because the 2nd of August is Elijah's birthday.
And that was a horrible day. It was a big turnaround on that day, yeah.
So the Tuesday, again, we just sort of anti-inflammatory. That's when...
Can I interject?
Please.
On that. So we're giving anti-inflammatories as we were told to do, but had started on his right leg, the buckling. Then it kind of came back and it was normal, and then his left leg started buckling. Okay. So we were like, okay, maybe it is still synovitis, but now by Tuesday, both legs, so it wasn't weakness anymore, it was now no walking, can't walk in both legs.
No mobility.
No mobility at all, and then we're like, look, it's not a little bit of leg weakness, both legs are completely out. Now our panic had started setting in. Like,
do you remember this very moment where when it goes to both legs, I mean, obviously at the time, we have no idea what it is, right?
No.
Yeah.
At the time, you're just looking at your son and you're like, both his legs aren't working.
Yeah.
In that moment, what's the first thing that goes through your mind? I think Courtney, first, what goes through your mind at that point?
At that point, I still wanted to believe in the doctors. I was like, the doctor said this, I'm going to follow this. He's told me to do this every certain hours. We're going to stick to it. But I do remember when he was laying down and I'd given him his anti-inflammatory, and I don't know why I did it, but I just did this on the back of his foot to see, and there weren't any reflexes. So at that point, it was from what we had looked up on at what synovitis is, it's inflammation of the hips. So at that point, there shouldn't be like a loss of reflexes.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm going, okay, but you don't want to go to that first. You're like, no, you're just being paranoid because you always think of worst case scenario as a parent. So it's like, okay, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, but I'm going to trust the doctor. Yeah. And then we had a conversation as a couple.
Yeah, I don't share the same sentiments. I was still on the side of doctors giving advice. Let's just follow that. The Tuesday, I did pick up the phone to call his pediatrician to say, listen, this is what's happened. Obviously the doctor that discharged him is different to his doctor that admitted him. She basically said, and I don't want to get too much into politics, but she basically said, look, she doesn't want to step on his toes because he's obviously now taken the case on board. That's when father instincts kicked in, and I said, I honestly, I don't give a F. I really don't. This is my son now. And that's when I sort of took over from, not to say that she was incapable, it's just me sort of stepping in. Yeah. She then said, okay, fine, on Wednesday, which was the following day, next day, bring him in 9 o'clock in the morning. We will do the ultrasound and the scan, which we
confirmation.
We did that the morning. The afternoon, she messaged me saying that she got the results and it's not synovitis.
And this is his birthday.
We don't know what it is.
On his.
So this is on his birthday. So on his third birthday. So he's in bed, he can't walk, we're trying to sing, we're trying to celebrate, we're trying to be happy with this horrible...
You also can't explain exactly what it is at this point.
No. So I think that was the moment for me that sort of kicked in to say, what now? Because now you've got a professional that has told you, look, don't worry, and now I worry, they don't know. So I asked, okay, what is the next step? She said, look, how soon can I see Elijah? I said, you tell me, I'll bring him now if I need to. She said, look, let's leave it for tomorrow, which is the Thursday. And then we can sort of run some tests. We didn't make it to Thursday. Wednesday night, his breathing was extremely labored.
It was the coughing. He was, so he obviously had been sick and had a chest infection, which had mainly cleared from antibiotics. But at that point, he started doing this weird cough. I still called you, and then you phoned her immediately. He was sitting in bed, and I don't know, there was just a change from how he was sick to he was now a different version of sick. So he started coughing.
It was weak.
And every time he coughed, he kept sticking his tongue out. I was like, this doesn't look right. This is not a normal cough. It was very weak, but it was constant. So you phoned her.
Yeah, and I said, we're bringing him now. And then she made arrangements for the ER team to accept our arrival. That was when so again, took him to Vincent Pallotti. We met another doctor.
The emergency doctor.
The emergency doctor. He went through a checklist from top to bottom, and we went through everything. Amazing.
And looking back, was that the spread heading into the lungs?
Yeah, so that was a paralysis moving up and
Yes.
starting to affect his diaphragm. So the fact that he couldn't, the weak cough was symbolizing that the diaphragm was now becoming paralyzed, and he obviously still had like the chest infection, so his body's trying to clear it, but he can't. So it's like, and when the doctor, his pediatrician, heard that he had this cough, she was just like, emergency room. This is now, we're not sick, we're not anti-inflammatories, we're now on another course of something very serious.
Again, we don't know what it is. So now we're in ER, and the first point of call is we need to do a lumbar punch and a CT scan. Yeah. So
which is where we started documenting everything.
That alone was tough to see. I mean, you got this scared, frightened 3-year-old.
Just turned 3. Just a baby still,
When they had mentioned to us what it could be, they said that what they were testing for is GBS, which is Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's similar. Do you want to explain what that is? Sorry.
So GBS it's also autoimmune, isn't it?
Yes.
So GBS is an autoimmune response, also after a viral infection. But with GBS, it's a lot more common.
Yeah.
So the symptoms that he was displaying is similar to GBS, a lot more common, and it's a long recovery period, but you recover.
Yeah.
So people, sometimes they can go blind, they can also get paralysis, there's various different symptoms, but they tend to recover.
Yeah.
So they were looking for the antibodies in his spinal fluid.
Yeah.
Yes.
So which is why they did the lumbar punch, which is like a needle this big in this tiny little boy.
Look, he was sedated at the time.
But still.
And I think that was sort of tough for myself and Courtney, it's strange because as I sit here now, I get emotional now. But back then, we stayed strong for Elijah.
So we're like on adrenaline when survival.
There was a lot of adrenaline.
It was just like emergency room, midnight CT scan. You know?
I mean, like I said, literally, this is early hours of the morning, midnight doing this. We stayed at the hospital with Elijah for the next day, and that's when we met his pediatric neurologist. And she basically gave us the news and said, look, we were hoping for GBS. It's not. What it is it's acute flaccid myelitis.
They didn't confirm it. So sorry.
It's all good.
So she came in and she said, look, because Dino's very, give me the worst case scenario and I'm going to plan for it. And the world is full of rainbows and sunshine. Everything's going to be fine. So we got this little balance between us. So he asked for the worst case scenario and she told us AFM. But what we want is GBS. So acute flaccid myelitis or Guillain-Barré. And we're waiting for the results from the lumbar punch. So she had prepared us for either way. And then when the results came back with no antibody, she said it is looking like AFM, but in order to confirm that diagnosis, we need an MRI.
Yes, you're right.
And then from the MRI...
Yes. So my apologies, a year
No,
ago.
it's fine.
Look,
It's a lot.
I
It's
think
been a lot.
the specifics of your journey outside of Elijah's, I mean, it's obviously as a family, it's one, but as parents, your journey and your journey as individuals, it's a completely different story, and it's something that it's easy to forget the little details.
No, absolutely.
Because there's a much bigger picture of what you were fighting for.
Absolutely.
So to be able to think back a year from now or so and remember each moment, I mean, it's quite normal to just miss a few little things. Tell me about when they walk in and they confirm after the MRI, right?
So you do you want to?
Do they confirm?
From this point, we were told by our doctor, the neurologist, he needs the MRI, and we were at Vincent Pallotti, so we had to be transferred to Christian Barnard because he needed to be sedated in order to do this. He's so young, he's not going to lay still for that extended period of time. They decided to sedate him, so they transferred him.
I think at that stage they kind of knew. because they had slipped and said
Yeah.
Christian Barnard has a better facility for what he has.
And they hadn't confirmed the
So
diagnosis then.
I think at that
Okay.
stage they knew. Nevertheless, they transported him in an ambulance. Again, like, I mean, if you go through his social, there's a photo of him in his ambulance at 3 years old. You can see it's like a deer in headlights, like bright eyes, like what is going on?
Big van and this tiny
yeah.
little boy.
Again, Courtney was at home with Isaiah at the time, so I transported with him, admitted him and everything, and then the following morning, they took him down to the radiologist to do the MRI. And I think that was the first time.
Yeah.
We're caught up to us.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think, you know, looking back at it, you feel the emotions.
Yeah.
You know, as you said, back then you're just figuring it out. You're being strong for the family. You know, you're being strong as a mom, you're being strong as a dad. You're taking leadership and throwing yourself into something that we don't know about.
No. I mean, at that stage, you start getting on WhatsApp and you message your friends and your family because they're obviously concerned and what's going on. And you say, he's got acute flaccid myelitis. Have you heard of it? Somebody must have heard about this thing because there's no manual that has come with this.
Yeah.
And every response, no, what is that?
What
is that?
Yeah.
And then obviously start doing research and this and that. But yeah, the MRI was the first time that I saw Elijah like fully sedated, like.
And the seriousness of it.
Yeah. So it's like a flood of emotions. And I mean, this happened, what? Months ago that he actually had it.
You know, as a father, you can't go in there and stop it from happening.
No.
To say like, this is my boy, you actually, your hands are tied in this situation. And you have in an innate kind of instinct to protect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you're protecting him by allowing him to go through this, but it's heartbreaking to see it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you hit the spot on there.
So there's a point where he's at the hospital where you aren't allowed to be with him.
Yeah, so
Overnight.
yeah, we weren't allowed.
Overnight.
So obviously you couldn't go in for the MRI.
So, yeah, so
And
you
then
can't
they-
go into the, I mean, it's the radiology area.
Yeah,
you can't.
yeah.
So they allowed me to see him before they sort of wheeled him in, and then this waiting room. And then you wait for the results of the MRI. And I mean, even that is like, you play the waiting game, like every minute is an hour, you know,
Yeah.
because you want that result. I understand, and it's no, the hospital, Christian Barnard, amazing. I give them props
Yeah.
in everything
They're a
that they've
very
done
good
for
hospital.
Elijah. They don't allow parents to stay overnight because he's in a pediatric ward. It's ICU. You don't know what germs are being brought in and out, so there's visiting hours. They allowed us as parents to be there from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, which was cool. So we got that time. So I mean, that initial moment where it's, look, you can't stay with Elijah. Like, okay, what do we do now? This is our 3-year-old son. I mean,
And we've never left him before, and now we're leaving him at a hospital.
yeah. But I mean, the boy was a champion. Like he was fine each and every day, each and every night.
But initially, so as you said, I was with Isaiah at home, and I wasn't there for the MRI. And when I came back, neither of us actually quite realized that he's not just going to be sedated for the MRI. They made the decision to put him in an induced coma because his body was under so much strain, and to give his body a chance to heal. And they obviously, it kind of seems like it's obvious for that to happen, but we hadn't clicked.
Of course.
So when I came back after he's had the MRI, he's now in a coma.
Wow.
And intubated, and he was that way for 10 days. To process
Was that with the ventilator as well?
yeah, so he had the ventilator through his throat at that point. And you don't process that, you don't even think of that. So we're on the whole not staying at night. The nurse did speak to us, so he's like, he's not awake, he's in an induced coma. If anything happens, we'll phone you immediately. And she made a very good point. She's like, we know it's hard, but you're going to be better parents for him in the morning by going home and getting a good night's rest, as opposed to sitting next to a hospital bed.
Yeah.
So that helped a bit, because you still want to be strong for your child. And again, we're right at the beginning, and we hadn't realized what path we're on.
Yeah, and
They had
what's to
told
come.
us it's like, this is a long journey. The illness you have, you're not going to be done in a day or two or week.
But
So
nobody gave the length. They just said it's a long journey.
It's a long journey. Keep your strength.
Yeah,
Go
until
home.
we met the specialists, and we'll go through like how many
Yeah.
specialists he had. But yeah,
Okay, so at this point, I mean, you obviously every day seeming like the worst day, because you actually can't see you can't see the future. You know it's a long journey now,
Yes.
right?
But you don't know what.
But you
it
don't
is.
know it's a year. You
No.
don't know it's 2 years. You don't know. Just to sidestep, how are you guys doing as a couple at that moment?
no.
In the beginning.
Yeah.
we were good. We were good. It was feeding off. Courtney sort of let me
Handle
run.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
she let me
Dino-
run with
yeah.
things.
He likes you're not controlling, but in certain situations, no, okay, he can be
He's a
controlling.
good
but
leader.
He's a good leader. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
controlling in a negative way, but
Yeah.
when he has a handle on things, his stress level is lower.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me to take a step back, it's better for both of us as opposed to both of us trying to be in the leadership role.
yeah.
So he's trying to like handle that. But initially, I wasn't good
Okay.
when we got to this point, when we got the diagnosis. I went down like
Okay.
I was very angry initially. I was very angry because he before he got sick, he wasn't a calm child. I want to say he was wild, but he loved life.
Yeah.
We went for hikes almost every weekend, every day, because we're living in Hope Bay. We went to the beach.
Yeah.
He was on his bike. He had a very active life. And for him, this was the worst thing for him to have been taken away. So I was extremely angry. And I don't know, maybe, I don't even know if I want to say this. I would look at like other kids and it would make me so mad. And not anything against them or their parents. It's just why? Our child?
Why?
Like he doesn't deserve it. So I was in that headspace for a while, and it did affect us negatively. And then Dino, he brought me back to earth.
Yeah.
He sat me down and he basically said, I don't know if you remember this conversation, but he said to me, not in an ugly way, but why not Elijah? You keep saying, why not him? Not that he deserves it, but sometimes in life you just get dealt a crap hand.
Yeah.
It just happens that way. And we can't change what has happened to him or what's going to happen, but we can change how we respond.
Absolutely.
And if we're strong for him, he can be strong. And then I think from that point, it brought us closer together, and our relationship was quite strong from then on. We also had figured out our roles, like I said. He took a leadership role, I was a more supportive role, and that helped us as a couple.
I think that's so important, because I think, a lot of the time the conversation obviously lies with the main, it lies with Elijah, but I think the resilience we know that kids show is one thing, but the resilience that you guys have shown, it's something that you should also be proud of. And I think, you don't know where a lot of people say, like, how do you prepare for becoming a parent? You can't. There are books, but it's a waste. I don't know. It's a waste of time, because you don't know what lies around the corner, but you do know where your heart lies, and. So, Dino, you played soccer at quite a high level as a junior. Can you take us through that? I know that is our connection of football.
Is that how you guys know
one
each other?
of many.
I thought
One
it was
of
just like
many
a family
connection.
friend.
I think a family friend, but also I think there's this moment in my mind that connects me to Dino that I will probably talk about till the day I die.
Okay, I feel honored.
A good moment.
I may be a musician, but my first love is football. And Dino is the person that introduced me very briefly to one of my favorite players, Ronaldinho. In Dubai, I got a photo with Ronaldinho. And I don't take
Make it
pictures.
happen.
He made it happen,
Oh,
and that
nice.
night I remember saying to him, it may have been 3 a.m., but I did say to him, anything you need, you let me know. I owe you.
couple of years later.
Here we are.
This is one of 10
This
that
is
you
one
owe
of,
me,
yeah.
okay?
This is one of. You played soccer at quite a high level, and I mean, seriously speaking, I think, you know, I have a daughter. She's 13. In the back of my mind, I would like to have a son one day, and
Okay.
I can't help but think of soccer
Okay.
as an ex-footballer. Is that something that you thought about?
I thought about it at length. So
Because obviously it was the years before also.
Absolutely,
It
so-
happened to Elijah.
if I can rewind the clock very
Yeah.
quickly, the day we found out that Courtney was pregnant with Elijah, very happy, very ecstatic,
Yeah.
mixed emotions from Courtney's side.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did the whole, obviously then it was trending, a gender reveal.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I wanted a daughter. I
Okay.
wanted a daddy's princess.
Okay.
I mean, I said that to Courtney, you know, give me a girl or I'll leave you at the hospital. That's a joke. That's a joke. And then we did the whole gender reveal, and I found out, you know, it's going to be a boy. I don't want to say I was disappointed, because then you start playing in your head like, okay, what are you going to do? Oh, you know what? Boy, soccer, yes. You know, that's going to be our connection. I'm going to play soccer. I'm going to teach you to play soccer. I'm going to teach you to drive, all of this, you know. And then fast forward after gender reveal, a few months, Courtney gives birth. But how Courtney gives birth is,
Oh, you're gonna do this?
I delivered Elijah. We never
Yeah.
made it to
We
the
never
hospital
made
in
it
time.
we had no plan for hospital. We were going to a what was it called? Like it's a
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
yeah, it's called Al-Nisa. It's basically like there's midwives.
There's a midwife
So it's not a
and
hospital
It's more of a
setting.
homely, and
Yes.
Courtney had the option. I said, listen, again, you know, it's covered medical aid. What do you want to do? She said, look, Courtney hates
I
hospitals.
don't like hospitals. I don't like doctors.
Fair.
It makes me feel like someone's dying.
Okay.
So to now have this sounds like. So we opted for. He was a little bit reluctant on our first child to have a straight
Yeah.
up home birth. So we compromised and we said Al-Nisa.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the morning of, Courtney had some pain, and I called up, spoke to the nurse. The nurse said, look, don't stress about it. Again,
That's a long story.
yeah, don't stress about it. She's probably going into labor, but you have 24 hours,
Hours.
Yeah.
don't stress. Next thing you know,
2 hours.
2
From
hours later.
start to him
Yeah.
being born is 2 hours.
And you,
He delivered him on the bathroom floor.
Yeah.
At
Wow.
home.
next thing you know, like I'm on the, and I mean, it's a home phone, so it's cordless, it's a cord connector.
Yeah.
I'm like this with the nurse, and I'm staring, and I see a half a head, and I'm like, the side of your brain that has no medical expertise, that gets a bit queasy when it comes to things
course.
like this, is telling you, no, that's not your son's head, no. But then the reality kicks in, and I'm like, no, dude, that is, I'm talking to myself as this is happening, and I'll never forget it. What they don't tell you is when a baby
Is born.
is born, it's like grey purple in color.
Yeah.
So we thought he died.
So I'm staring at a lifeless head,
And we're like,
and I drop the phone, and I obviously there on my knees, and I catch him, and as he falls, the cord's around his neck. I take it around his neck, and I hold him up, and he just
screams.
starts crying.
yeah.
And I mean, this
Wow.
was August, winter night, cold as hell,
Storming.
storming in the car. I mean, I caught the placenta also. I did everything that night, and just heater
I
on
was
and
just
rush
there.
through.
I was just there because he did
you were
all
just
of
a
it.
passenger.
Yeah, basically.
So, I mean, from the get-go, Elijah and I have always had like a special
Super
bond.
strong
Yeah.
bond.
He's always been a daddy's boy.
Yeah.
If he got hurt, then he'd look for me. And
Comfort,
And I
daddy.
suppose even now with everything going on, like I have to be the strong version of myself.
Yeah.
If I show that worry, he will pick up on that.
Yeah. Because your connection
Exactly.
is so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to your question of sport and that. Do
Yes.
you know,
I
he's
would-
got, he
I
still
mean,
has boots
I have
that was
boots,
meant
yes.
to grow into.
I mean, he's got his little Arsenal outfit.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we threw away the league, but it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah.
Let's move to social media. Courtney, there was a day you were having a tough day.
Yeah.
You needed some air.
Yeah.
You got in the car.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
So from what we share, I guess everything looks like fun and sunshine, and like we said, we try and keep a strong face for our kids, but it gets too much. It just gets too much sometimes. And at that point, there was, do you want to lead into America? So we had the option of going to
Yeah.
America and what comes with it. And it was just a lot of stresses and anxiety around making that happen. And I just needed to figure it out. So I left the house, and he had been asking me to do something, and I was like, well, here's an opportunity, and I decided to share. So, but keep in mind also, like I said in the video, I'm not very active on social media at all. Even now, I mean, today you told me log on to TikTok. I'm like, how do I even do that? Do I even have this app on my phone? So I'm not that way clued up. I mean, my days are busy. Even before Elijah got sick, 2 kids. At that time, it was a newborn and a 2-year-old.
That's
so
busy.
It's always busy. So I'm not always, you know, I'm not always on social media. So I decided to open up and I decided to share, because it's at the same time, I mean, Dino is a bit more emotional and letting his feelings out and processing it, where I kind of put it all in a nice little box deep down inside, and then everything will be fine until one day. So I decided to open the box a little bit and share some of it, and that's what came from it.
And I think a lot of people had seen the video, and Dino, just to give everyone context, can you quickly take us through the story of firstly America and the costing, and then, you know, the initial number that was needed?
So before America even transpired, we were sort of okay. We were content with what was happening with Elijah with regards to his daily regimen of physiotherapy, occupational therapy, hydrotherapy. He's a bit delayed in speech, so in the beginning he started with speech and language therapy as well. But then as he started picking up words, we sort of ended that, because again we tried to look at the cost.
Finances.
I mean, 4 days a week of doing therapies.
So that's speech?
Speech, 2 separate physios, because the one can only fit him in once a week, so we have a backup one. Occupational therapist and a hydrotherapist.
And then that's besides his neurologist. And
Neurologist, a
his normal doctors.
pediatrician, his pulmonologist, at that time in hospital, his dietitian.
There was when he was in ICU, in hospital, he had 14 specialists working with him.
14 specialists.
14. Yes.
So, but keep in mind as well, what he has is, it's rare, and there's a lot of complications. So we had a doctor for everything. What was nice about that hospital is what his Pete at that time said, is there's a WhatsApp group with everyone just for him. Which I think is so beautiful in the sense that all the doctors are constantly on the same page. Where, not saying anything about any other hospitals, but you see one person, then they talk to us, then we relay, and it's a little bit broken. Where in this sense, it's kind of organized, everyone's working together as a team for Elijah. So at the peak of it, he had 14 specialists. It's a lot of doctors.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
So if you look at the, you know, obviously you had done some research going, you know, left, right, center, all over the world. How do you stumble upon America?
Courtney did. Courtney sent me a video. I was at the office one day and Courtney sent me a video and said, just watch this. It was of a doctor. Her name is Dr. Amy Moore. She is a peripheral nerve surgeon. Yes, she specializes in peripheral nerve surgery. She was busy on a BBC news segment, and she was explaining to the cameras of a 6-year-old boy at the time who also was diagnosed with AFM, and what she was going to perform on him was what is called a nerve transfer surgery. She had success in it, and that boy, he can now stand and he can walk.
I've seen the video.
Amazing to see.
And the transfer happens, she used 2 different transfer points.
Yes.
One being from the toes, taking the nerve and connecting the hip. And the other one from the abdomen. She said where you would do sit-ups. Because we have extra nerves in that department.
There we go, absolutely.
And then use that one for the straightening of the leg. Which is incredible. I mean, when you see this video, surely you
it's like
that was the moment where there's a chance that my son can walk and be normal. You know, I use that. I don't want to say he's not normal, but there's a chance for him to have
better quality of life.
Or his life back to how he knows it to be. So then you start doing your investigation work, and you go into dad mode, like I need to make this happen. How do I do that? I messaged her. I called. So she practices out of the Ohio State University in Columbus. I called them. They said, look, we can't put you through. It's not like a doctor's office where you go to a doctor and you sit in a waiting room and they say, oh, you can have an appointment tomorrow or whatever. They took my details. 2-3 weeks went by. I heard nothing. I called again. Took my details. 2 weeks went by. Nothing happened.
Social media.
Social media, I reached out. So that's when I went on to Instagram. I messaged a lengthy message on Instagram. I see there's nothing at the bottom that says seen. Facebook. Message the same.
You even
on Facebook.
started a Twitter account.
I started. I mean, she's got Twitter. I started a Twitter account in the hopes to get in contact with this with this doctor. Fortunately enough, my younger sister lives in Texas, and I called her up. I said, Jamie, I need you to do something here. If you can make calls, or even if you must take a flight. I mean, it's not a Texas and Ohio's opposite ends. And then I did a bit more research, and I saw that she performs her surgeries for children at the Nationwide Children's Hospital in Ohio. So my sister contacted them, and somehow or another, I woke up one morning and I had a message from the hospital and said, listen, I work and I'm part of Dr. Amy Moore's team. Wow. We'd love to set up a video call with you just to see if there's anything we can do. And one thing led to another. I said, tell me when, and we'll make it happen. We then had the video consult. We met with Dr. Amy Moore and her entire team. So she's got a team of physiotherapists and anesthesiologists and about 6 people in the room at the time. And they asked us questions pertaining to Elijah and AFM. Has he got any movement back? How far has the paralysis gone? Side note on that. So with AFM, the paralysis varies from case to case. We're fortunate and we're blessed that Elijah's paralysis is only in his legs, whereas there are other cases where it's the entire body.
Or just an arm.
So there's been a lot of wins, if I can use that word, for us. And if I can just take us back quickly to when we were officially told that he has AFM, his doctor sat us down in Vincent Blotti and said, look, I've received his MRI, and the word she used was his brain is pristine.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's
a win.
It's a win. So the paralysis, because some kids, they fix their brain.
Yeah.
But she did say that this is going to be a long journey, as we've said before, and they said he's most likely going to be in hospital for about 8 months. He was discharged after 6 weeks.
Wow.
The tracheostomy?
They did a tracheostomy on him, obviously where they took him off the sedation because there was a risk of infection, and they obviously put the pipe in his throat. I mean, that also was scary because they don't tell you that when they do that, they sort of block off your vocal cords. So I come in one day after work, and I'm like, hello, my boy, and I said to Courtney, where's this like this voice? Where? Because now I'm stressing. I'm like, you know, is it gone? And then they explained to me, it's basically, you want to explain how?
So back to tracheostomy. So when he was sedated, they intubate you through the mouth, but you can only do that for 10 days because the risk of infection goes up. And they saw, okay, like his diaphragm and everything still needs more time to recover. It's not regaining its function. They're going to take it out of his mouth, but in order to do that, they have to do a tracheostomy.
Wow.
So they make a hole from your neck into your airway that goes down, but they have a balloon that's inside. So the balloon blocks it and pushes against the vocal cord so that the air can obviously go into his windpipe.
Yes.
So he has, at that time, he has no voice.
Voice,
but they change the settings. They take like the air bubble away, and then his voice comes back. It's just different ways they had it over periods of time. So they had done that, and they told us that he's going to have this for how long?
For years.
Yeah.
We were supposed to meet.
Some kids that have it for their whole life.
We were supposed to have a nurse teach us how to change it and clean it every single day. So again, that's adding to it now. Like, okay, this is part of our daily regimen. We have to clean this pipe and change it, and a tube and this and that.
And there's a ventilator coming home with us.
I mean, the ventilator was applied for
and waiting for
us, and then
the nurse went on holiday. She said, I'm going on holiday, but don't worry, because I know when I come back, you're still going to be in hospital, and I will teach you when you come back. And the day she came back, she goes, I have you down in our diary, but the doctors are taking it out today. And it just shows, she's like, I knew you were still going to be here, and I knew I had time to teach you. Sure. But I've gone on holiday and I've come back, and it's done. So that alone, it was 3 weeks.
Another win for us.
No one could believe the fact that it was coming out, because it was dead certain. He's going home with it. He's going to be on it for 1 year to 2 years, however long he needs it.
I think
3
it's so
weeks.
important we share some of the wins and some of the
Absolutely.
light.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
it's very easy to only focus on the things that aren't going well. And I think it's important that we also share what has gone well. And there's been a lot of it.
Yeah.
So the doctors told you that this could be an 8-month process at that point.
For him to be
In
in
For
hospital.
him to be in hospital,
Yes.
he was released after 6 weeks.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's by no man's hands. right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
Can you give us a bit of insight into the paralysis, exactly what it is?
You want to take this?
So initially when Elijah just got sick, there's an acute phase where your body has a bad reaction, it has an autoimmune response, and then it settles down and you see what paralysis you're left with.
Yeah.
So after he got sick and it started with one leg to the other leg and moved up to his lungs, I think the worst point we were at, he couldn't sit by himself and he couldn't hold his neck up by himself. But once all the infections and the acute phase calmed down, he regained the ability to hold his neck. I think one of the first posts you can see is his first physio sessions where they're trying to get him to sit by himself. And at this point, the more permanent paralysis, I don't want to say permanent because it could, is in his legs. So he is paralyzed in both legs, but at this point in time, he has regained function in his right foot. It started off with his big toe. He can now move all his toes. He can move his whole foot from the ankle down, which sounds simple and small, but it's big.
It's a big win.
It's a big, considering we had nothing in the leg. So
And he's got feeling. He can feel.
and he can feel all the way through.
Yeah.
So that was also a big relief, something
Yeah.
we never thought of, is he was sleeping and they had to take blood from him one day in hospital and they took it from the bottom of his foot and he woke up crying and we're like, he has feeling, because we
They
never
asked us that question.
like,
Can he feel?
can you feel? We're like, we don't
Yes.
know. So he has feeling in both of his legs all the way through. He's also regained hip mobility. So when he's dancing, you can see in some of his videos, he shakes his hips a lot.
Okay.
So he's got hip and glute activation. And what we're working on now with his physios is trying to get his hamstrings and his quads.
quads,
Yeah, so that would be the next step. And once you can get some strength in your hamstrings and quads and stabilize the knee, which is where the surgery comes in, he should be able to stand.
Okay.
But where in the timeline, we don't know yet.
Okay. I think to take a few steps forward from that point, when you get the contact with them in America, the specialists and the surgeon, Dr. Amy Moore, right?
Yes.
You do the video call with them.
Yes.
Eventually, you get to the quoting process.
Yes. So 2 days after the video call, I got an email with the initial quotation for what a nerve surgery costs.
What was that?
They charge government and institutions, which from my understanding is their medical
aid,
providers,
yeah.
$128,000 US.
US dollars.
But for individual families, 50% off, 64,000 US.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at that automatically, you're like, okay, half the price, you
Half
know
the
what, it's
price.
Yeah.
decent.
But then you convert it.
Yeah. Then I think it was about a week that went by. We've always been religious to a certain degree, to a certain extent we've been religious. But I think this has sort of brought us closer with God. Elijah, he claimed our bed. I think he was still a bit frightened, so for majority of the part where he came home, he just slept in bed with me.
Yeah.
And there was one night, a week after receiving that quote of 64,000,
He wasn't scared, sorry.
he
There's no need
he
to
wanted
cut.
to sleep with
He
Daddy.
couldn't, so he moves a lot of nights and obviously he's newly paralyzed.
Okay.
So we had made the decision to put him in bed with him and I would be with the baby
Okay.
because we were constantly up. He would call us and we have to turn him and move because he hadn't quite learned his body yet. So, but sorry, that's a side, completely side.
That's okay.
So you got,
Yeah,
you
and
got the quote.
there was one night
Can we
where-
do a conversion on 64,000 US?
Well, it depends on what day you're looking
at
at.
the-
Yeah,
At
if we
ti-
look,
at
let's
the-
let's
at
look at. You want to look at the time?
At the
At the
time,
time.
it was about 1.3 million
Yeah.
rand. Which I said to Courtney, we'll make this happen. It doesn't matter how, what, when or how, we'll make this happen. But then as days went on, days turned into, I think it was about a week and a half after that. I was laying in bed one night, Elijah was asleep, and I just turned over and I looked at him, and I think that was my sort of moment. And I sat up, it was about close to midnight, I sat up and I prayed.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, Lord, I need you to show me that you are involved. I know you've done all these things. You brought my son home. You've healed him as much as you can and continue to heal him. And the one thing I asked for, I said, just show me you involved. The very next day, I think it was about 5 o'clock our time, because I mean Ohio is behind.
Yeah.
And I looked at the time, I think it was 11 o'clock the morning their time. I got a mail with a revised quotation. And Courtney was bathing the boys, and I just burst into tears. I heard Courtney screaming on the wall, "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" And I called her. I couldn't even speak. And she read the email. I mean, I'm happy to show the email. It said, "We've made a mistake." I mean, who makes mistakes like this? A medical mistake. And the day after, I say a prayer. And I mean, it could be a coincidence, whatever it is.
They never gave a reasoning for it.
They just said, "We've made a mistake."
The new revised amount is
$22,500 US dollars. So now we come down all the way to, again, at the time was around 400,000 rand. Bearing in mind that 22,500 US is just for the procedure.
Surgery,
It doesn't cover hospital costs. It doesn't cover post-op. It doesn't cover rehabilitation. But again, you know, you look at that and you're like, you know, this is so achievable. We can do this with the help of other people. And at that time, Elijah already had a nice following. People were invested in his story. So it was nice to share this and say, look, there's now a chance that we can get Elijah the help he needs, you know. So I mean, we were, I said, if you had to take a pillow of feathers and just hit me, I would have fallen over. I mean, that was just, it was amazing. So that's where we were at. Courtney and I sat down and we spoke and we said, look, what do we need to do to make this happen? And obviously at that time we had already had the crowdfunding, the South African version, which is BackerBuddy. We had that open and running already. We had that running from even before he was discharged for hospital. Reason being is because he needed the regimen of the rehabilitation, the physio, the occupational, the hydro, the speech.
And these are weekly.
These are daily. These are
Yeah.
daily. I mean, he was at a point where he was doing 4 days a week.
He still is doing 4 days.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We wanted to skip Friday and allow him just to be.
So we give him 1 day off,
You know,
because
he's-
it's too much for 3
Yeah,
years.
they said. I mean, his physiotherapist said that they don't want him to sort of hit the brick wall, because then he's just going to give up. So we had started the BackerBuddy crowdfunding a week before he was discharged, and we had initially asked for 500,000 rand to cover not only his rehabilitation but also for his equipment. I mean, nobody tells you that a wheelchair for a 3-year-old is going to set you back 14,000.
Wow.
Nobody tells you that a standing frame is going to set you back, how much was it? 26,000. His AFOs that he needs to put on daily is, I mean...
So the AFOs, which help, because your foot drops when you're paralyzed. So it keeps your foot in this position so that your ligaments, so when you start walking again, you can walk. So it's the AFOs and the gaiters together was 17,000.
So when we initially started the BackerBuddy, there was no America in sight at that stage. So we sat down and we said, look, we've already got the crowdfunding of BackerBuddy. Let's look at starting other options, which was the main one, which is GoFundMe. Did some research. We saw that you can open a GoFundMe from anywhere in the world. We did that, obviously being here in South Africa. And then there's another one based in the UK. It's called Just Giving. One thing we found, there were some friends of ours from Dubai, from the UK, that attempted to donate via BackerBuddy, but when it got to that last part of the credit card, it just kicked them out. And we found, you know, people might think because it's, you know, you're working from abroad, it might be a scam. People might have that mentality. And you can only get one shot with us. You know, I'm going to donate a 10, a 50, $100 or whatever the case may be. So that's what led us to looking at other options. So we did a small little Wix website, cost us nothing, and it's literally all his information
Where
is
you're
there.
hosting all the different...
Absolutely. So there's different ways, whichever people feel comfortable with. We even put his, I mean, he's got a bank account here as well. And I mean, that's been so helpful for people in South Africa. I mean, we've received people's donations, and when I say people have donated 10, 20, 25, 30, 40 rand, but let me tell you, those 10s and 20s, it has added up. And it has helped us get to our point of where we are today. So although the total cost for the operation is 22,500 US, in terms of rand, I think as of today it's about 420,000
Yeah.
rand. That is only for the operation. There is still the flights. So one thing that it's tough for Courtney because from a financial standpoint,
We had to make that decision.
Courtney and Isaiah won't be going.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it when you sit down, you got to take the emotion out of it, and you look at it pen to paper. It's 4 people's passports. It's 4 people's visas. It's 4 people's flights.
Right.
It's much more achievable
Yeah.
for us if just Dino and Elijah go
Yeah.
and we stay, because then it'll be more.
Yeah.
Like we can get there.
You can get
I mean,
there.
It's about for us, for flights alone, it's almost 100,000 for the whole family.
For myself and Elijah,
It's
look, it's
58.
58,000.
So now you got to double that. It's
Visa cost was 3,000 rand
each.
Yeah.
So step 1, our visas are done. We have our visas.
Dino and Elijah has their visas.
Yeah.
We all have our passports now.
Yeah.
What is a lot of people look at the amount. Some people might look at what you've received across all the different things and be
Yeah.
like, wow, that's a lot. I'm sure it's fine, but it's not.
No.
It's not.
No.
It's
There are
so
so many things that are, outside of the
Yeah.
actual procedure, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. The thought of you guys not all being together, it breaks my heart.
I don't want my son to go on his first flight without me.
Yeah, it's
I don't want him to go into surgery in another country without me.
Well, that's
extremely
yeah.
But
tough.
you have to take your emotions out of it and look like what's best for Elijah. Like what's gonna make it achievable for him.
I mean, even from an accommodation standpoint, yes, my sister's in Texas, but again, I think it's an 18-hour drive from Texas to Ohio and a 2-hour flight. So she's already started looking at Airbnbs. I've reached out to some friends.
Yeah.
I said, look, if
Foundations.
you've got literally a friend that has a couch, I'll
Yeah.
sleep on a couch.
Yeah.
We've reached out to foundations that does
This type of thing.
this type of accommodation for international patients. I haven't heard anything back. So we've exhausted everything. Like we've reached out to, if it's okay to say, we've reached out to Reach for a Dream,
Yeah.
the Wish Foundation,
Yeah.
Gift of the Givers.
Yeah.
Every charitable organization you can think of, we have reached out to
Yeah.
them. A lot of them, and I mean, it is
So
what it is.
yeah.
They sort of provide for
Specific things.
things.
Okay.
Also, AFM is not something that is
It's not widely known.
widely
There isn't
known.
a foundation. Well, I think there is in America, but it's not a lot of fundraising
Yeah.
and covering for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And another thing we've also, like he says, we've reached out to a lot of charities, and no fault on them. They just keep saying it's not within their
Yeah.
scope. So it doesn't seem to be, which actually leaves, like we've also spoken about, there's like a gap to try and get families who need medical support in other countries. There's nothing that actually helps families get there and then help cover for the costs.
Yeah.
So for us, it's not like we're not going from $1 to a rand, or
Yeah.
we're going the opposite way.
Yeah.
It's from a rand to $1. It's just like,
So, to summarize financially, what is the ideal amount of money that you guys require?
Ideally, in a perfect world, what we initially asked for and put out there was a total of $30,000 in the range of rands, let's say around 650,000 rand. We feel that would be enough to cover the cost of the operation, flights, accommodation, food, and also we don't know how long Elijah is going to be staying in America. I think that's the biggest sort of conundrum right now, because once the procedure's done, I assume that they're going to keep him there for a minimum a month to do follow-up consults, checkups, rehabilitation, so forth and so on. I mean, I can't hop on a plane and say, hey doc, something's wrong, get another plane. So to answer your question, around 650,000 rand.
Okay. So the difference right now, we're looking at almost another 300,000.
So we are currently on around 320,000 rand.
Okay.
So yes, let's just
call it roughly about another 330,000.
another
Yeah.
330. Yeah.
Okay.
we know that even though if we get to that amount, that would be amazing for us. But we do know as we've said, because that's just the surgery. There's still consultation fee, hospital fee, medication, rehabilitation. So we're trying to, we know we're not going to get everything covered, that's fine, but we're willing to take that on ourselves. And even if we're in debt for the rest of our life, it's for a good reason. I mean, it's not gambling or a holiday.
Of course.
So yeah, so that's additional cost, but we're not looking for that from other people. At this point, we just want to cover the surgery, and hopefully, even though we know it's most likely going to be Dino and Elijah, but hopefully get all of us to America.
That's
and
what
then
I
be
want.
there for an extended period of time.
Okay. Can you tell me, is there a time frame around when you leave, when you need the funding, and how it works?
So there's a window period.
Okay.
There's been 8 case studies that Dr. Moore has
Sent to us.
The best time that they have found for results is a window period between 9 and 12 months is the cutoff. We are now
From diagnosis.
So we're approaching 12 months.
Wow.
So 12 months will be August for us.
So there is a window period, yes. Time frame wise, we initially had a date set for the 27th of June. That had to be postponed because we never had the money for the hospital. They do require a lump sum pay, not pay half, and so forth and so on. The new proposed date is the 25th of July. So
his surgery is booked at this point. Whether we'll make it, we're not sure.
Okay, so that's about a month and a bit from now.
Yeah.
For me, I think, you know, a lot of the time you have to tackle each challenge as it comes to you. We want to talk about what happens beyond the operation, but we need to get to the operation.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, the most important thing is that we create the awareness for people to understand that there are also things and numbers that are going to pop up that you don't know about.
Absolutely.
But I think the most important thing as we sit here right now is to make sure that people know enough to give us the best opportunity to get all of you there.
Yeah.
Dino, Courtney, do you have a message for all those who have supported you already?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that we want to say, and I think the biggest thing that we want to say is thank you. I don't think that there's an amount of thanks that we can convey to everybody. From those that's donated, there's been people that weren't able to donate, but they shared his story, they shared Elijah's story. Even just something so simple as clicking that share button a million times over, thank you. And you'll be surprised that it's strangers, literal strangers that have come to our aid. Your normal average Joe, your person that's working a 9 to 5, that has families to feed. I mean, you can go in the crowdfunding, you can see people, there's people that have donated 20 Rand, 50 Rand, and it shows you that is, sometimes that's all that they have and all that they can afford, but we are so grateful.
It's so genuine as well, they just want to help.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I don't know anything else.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who has donated. Thank you to everyone who has shared his story. And everyone watching this, you literally have the power to change my son's life, to get him out of his wheelchair and potentially standing, and with God's help, walking again. Thank you.
We also want to reach out to, you know, businesses, corporates. If there's a way you can get on board, you've understood exactly the story, the journey that everyone has been through. And we just want to put out a call to action to get involved in any way that you can, whether it's financially, whether it's flights, whether it's accommodation, whether it's, I think every little bit will help. And we just want to thank you for watching this. Thank you for, you know, experiencing the journey with us. Dino, Courtney, thank you for sharing it. Thank you for, you know, letting out every little emotion and every little detail around it. All we can do is share stories.
It's tough because we sort of letting the world essentially into a 3-year-old's life, and what people see is what we allow you
Yeah.
to see. You see 99% of it is the smiles, the laughter. But there are days where it's the difficult days where Elijah will wake up and he starts crying and he's pulling on his legs and he's screaming, and we have to run into a room, and it's one of the biggest lies we tell him, but we have to experience
Just to make him
just to make him
comprehend.
calm down and understand. We tell him, look, buddy, your legs are just sleeping.
They're just very tired right now, and they just
And-
need a long
and
sleep.
Then he's wake up, wake up, wake up. Elijah, he talks a lot in his sleep, and in his dreams, Courtney can tell you, like, you hear him, like, he'll say, run, run, like he wants,
me.
chase me. You know, like
Laughing.
he's dreaming of running.
Sure.
You know, those are the pictures and videos that we don't show.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you're watching this for the first time and you are in a position to donate, please, please, if you aren't, share Elijah's story, keep him in your prayers.
Yeah, keep him in your prayers,
honestly,
please.
honestly, all we can ask for.